everybody, and welcome. We are here. We are thrilled that you're here for the College Counseling Kickoff Night for Juniors. We are your college counselors with lots of experience and many years of advice to share. And the purpose of tonight's meeting is to explain the college landscape and to teach you how to navigate the process happily. We see this as the culmination of the experience at Columbus Academy, and really this is kind of like a biggest school project ever. One of our goals is to hopefully lessen the stress we know you feel surrounding this process. And parents, we want to let you know that we try and place this in the proper context of a developing child. We know from experience that the college process can be infused with love, joy, and happiness, and we're going to try and bring that to the program tonight. Students, you may see some prizes up front for listening for 1 hour. We're only going to ask you to listen for 1 hour. There are going to be prizes. We'll have a spinning wheel at the end, so we're going to try and leaven this with a bit of fun and fluff. So we are 3 of the college counselors, but there are 2 very important people in our office who are not on the stage, and that is Ms. Conti and Mrs. Schmall. They are really the women who make all the magic happen in our office, and we have to thank them for a lot. So they are a big, big part of our program. Oh, that is so great. So we have organized this evening into a 1-hour program to help you get the information you need in a straightforward, step-by-step way. We'll share this presentation with you tomorrow, so there's no need to take photos or notes. We're going to share everything with you, and you will get a folder of information when you leave. And that folder will both have your college counselor assignment, the college counselor that you're primarily going to be working with, although you work with all of us as a group in college counseling class and many other ways. And you'll also get a copy of your transcript. But tonight's presentation, I'll tell you, is a little bit like a large lecture hall class in college. So we are going to give you an overview, providing you the vocabulary and background information that will be helpful as we begin this journey. But we also, like college, we also have breakout seminars, which those are smaller group gatherings, and we have presentations for parents. We send you lots of emails about those. They're in the Viking Voice. They're often in the morning on specific topics. And for students, we have seminar-style classes for you in our college counseling classes that you will start as soon as you get back for second semester. And then there are also one-on-one meetings, which are like college tutorials. Students meet with college counselors regularly. You'll have lots of individual appointments with us. And parents, it'll be your turn after your child has their first appointment with us. So the way that we run it is children sign up, have their first appointment, and then the next appointment is with parents. These are all personalized and individual, and we have a whole communications plan to make it work for you. So really, what is college counseling? At the most basic level, it's a match to be made. It's about helping students and families find a college university that will be the next step in a child's educational and growth journey. It's really a matching game and a process of self-discovery and research. And what we really want for all students is we want them to find a place they'll be moving from high school into more of the adult world, and we want you to find a place where you can continue learning, maturing, and engaging in the wider world. And all of our programming and individual counseling is about this. We love this photo. This is our goal for you, and it's hard to believe in 18 months, you all will be there. This is the final bell for those of you who are first time having students at Columbus Academy. And this is on the quad on the last day of school for seniors, and there's a final bell, and all of the students gather together. Kind of a tearful moment for some of us as we send them off I don't want to start crying right now because we're only 2 minutes into the presentation, but I will on that day be a little full of tears. And as you sit here, you may be wondering, how do Columbus Academy kids navigate this successfully every year? And our answer is they have a plan. They follow a calendar and a detailed step-by-step process that we set up. And tonight we'll outline those steps for you and tell you a little bit more about how college admissions work. We are lucky to have Mrs. Kruka on our staff, who has most recently worked in college admissions, and she's going to give you a deep dive into a little bit about the college world.
Okay, so as you can see on the agenda tonight, we're at step number 1, which is really just the landscape of college admissions. And if you were here with us last March, we showed you this funnel. Colleges, remember, are a business, so this is kind of how they shape their class. They start with the pool and they kind of work their way down the funnel. But tonight we really want to focus on a few of the terms that you're going to hear a lot when you go on college campuses. You're reading college guidebooks. You might be looking at other resources that we have for you. So you're going to see things like admit rate and yield. Those are going to be showing here on this funnel so that you can kind of understand what colleges are talking about when they're talking about those two things. I also really want to remind you students that you have the control over almost every single part of this funnel. The only one you don't have control over is whether the school chooses to admit you or not. So you do have the opportunity, I guess, to choose the level of happiness or stress that you have in this process. And we're going to talk a lot tonight about how to kind of balance all of those things when you're kind of coming up with a list of schools. But colleges really do control way less than you think they do in that particular funnel. I know you probably all think this is what happens in admissions offices when they're reading applications. They're all sitting around a nice oak conference table and they've got their computers open and they're reviewing applications all at the same time, same application. Then they're going to talk about it for 15, 20 minutes and they're all going to take a vote. That's not at all how it happens. It's way more like this. So if you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, it's all about the statistics. This is a business, and they're going to use a lot of what you probably use, parents, in some of your businesses. They're going to use predictive modeling. That's exactly how they choose a lot of times to make decisions on students for a lot of different reasons. One of the things that they're always asking themselves, if I offer this student a spot in my class, how likely are they to take that spot? So those are just the things that are always on their mind. Their marketplace shifts pretty dramatically every single year, it seems. Admissions offices are constantly talking about all of these different shifts and changes that are going on. That's what they're talking about in their offices, and it's our job to stay on top of all of those pieces as well. Again, this is a business, and right now, these are some of the more important factors that these businesses, these colleges are talking about in their admissions offices and amongst their boards of trustees. These are things that we keep our fingers on the pulse of all the time, whether it's through different articles and literature that we read, we go to conferences, we network with college admissions professionals, and these are some of the things that are on their minds, and we hear about these a lot. These are legitimate sources. These are not moms on TikTok who had one successful college search and then are just blasting it all out all over there for all of you to believe. These are experts. And so we want you to know that being an informed consumer is really a very big part of this process. As colleges are reading your applications, they're looking at all of the things you submit. But the top 3 things that they're looking at are the things that are bolded here at the very top. They are looking at your academic record first. That's the thing that holds the most weight in this process. We do want to kind of mention that test scores took a little bit of a pause for a while during COVID. They are creeping back in as test required. A lot of schools are kind of making that shift back. Most notably down the street, Ohio State this year is their first year making the shift back to test required. So yes, your grades are an important factor, but colleges have to ask themselves all the time, what do those grades mean? I'm looking at this transcript and I know that there's grade inflation. There's grade inflation everywhere. So how do colleges kind of determine what that looks like? And as they're reading, what does that mean? So in a test optional world, And truly in, a post-COVID world, whether the school is test optional or not, how are schools deciding what does an A mean? What does a B mean? So this is a chart, these two charts here at the bottom that you see here are national data. These are not Columbus Academy. This is not Columbus Academy data. These charts are national data, but I want to just kind of point out some things in case you can't see it. In 1997, Bs were roughly 50% of the grades awarded in high schools, and As were just over 30% of the grades awarded in high school. Today, over 60% of the grades that are earned in high schools are As, and 30% are Bs. So they've flipped. And so how are colleges making the decision of what does this GPA mean or what does this grade mean? They're looking to other sources, and one of those other sources just happens to be AP exam scores. So AP exam scores, as many of you know who've taken them, these are national tests, these are standardized, and so those are some of the ways that colleges are, I guess, kind of deciding or deciphering what those grades mean. One more slide on data, and this one, well, actually, I guess you can't see it, it's pretty big. So you probably, parents, applied to school in the 1990s, or as some in the office like to call it, the good old days. So I want to show you on this chart, you're going to see the 1990 admission data. In the center, you're going to see 2015, and then closest to the college name is today's admission data. We do have a pullout here for Ohio State. That data is not showing up on this chart. But in the 1990s, many of you may have applied to OSU's main campus, which was essentially close to open enrollment at that time. It is now a selective flagship public university. They admit fewer than half of the students or fewer than 50% of the people who apply. That's kind of the shift we're seeing. That's one of the things we want to kind of just point out to you this evening, that there are some dramatic shifts in admission data. For Columbus Academy students at Ohio State Columbus campus, we typically see around a 3.9 GPA with those honors level courses and an SAT score in the high 1300s. Those are the students who are faring well for an admit at the Columbus campus. Okay, so I've talked a lot about data. I've talked a lot about data, but I'm going to pass it off to Misfits to bring some joy into this process.
Okay, so let's take a page out of Dr. Lasambe's book. Everybody stand up. You got it. You can do it. Turn to a neighbor and say, I'm going to keep joy in the process. Go for it. I saw some hugs, some high fives. All right, have a seat. So we want to emphasize the 3 steps to a happy college process, that you should and should always be thinking about ways to keep joy in the process. We want this to be fun. We know some of it's going to be hard, but we want to talk about some of the parts that are fun. So please don't skip step number 1, the guided self-reflection. We talked about this last year. We're going to talk briefly about it right now, but the most important parts of 1, 2, and 3 are always thinking about how can I keep joy in the process. Okay, so the guided self-reflection, we gave you some things last year that you can do, and we're going to add to it this year. The first thing you're going to do tomorrow, you're going to get an email or a reminder in your Google Classroom. This is for students, and we're going to ask you to complete a survey for your counselor. If you're very eager, you can start it this week or when you have school off on Friday, but it is going to be due right around the end of Thanksgiving. Once you do that survey, you're going to find that we ask lots of questions that get you thinking about yourself. We want you to brag about yourself. We want you to think about what brings you joy, and we'll ask you questions about that. We have lots of platforms and self-assessment exercises. We would ask you to think about trying an internship through Ms. Conti's office, attending one of the alumni career forum panels. We heard about one just today at an assembly, and last year I stood up on the stage and said, ask the adults who you know what they do for fun, and does it bring them joy? What do they do for work? Does it bring them joy? Ask the adults in your life. Some of the guided self-reflection will take place in our college counseling class, which we absolutely love. Nobody in this entire school loves a Kahoot more than the 3 people you see on stage. We will start almost every class with a Kahoot. We will give out prizes like that. We have a huge prize bin full of college swag. I see people straining their necks to see. You'll be able to come on down. And we also give away snacks. We try to make it really as low drag as possible. This is a way for us to get to know you, for you to get to know us. And for parents, we want you to be asking your kid about this class. We will send you periodic emails that say, hey, we just did this. Talk to your kid about this. For students, this will all be organized in the Google Classroom, and parents, you can be asking them all the time to look at the Google Classroom. But this reflects our basic philosophy that the college process can really be easily managed by thinking of it as simple chronological steps. Not everything's gonna happen the night you leave here tonight and you're gonna go home and start the college process and it's done in a week. If you do that, you've done it incorrectly. It's really a marathon and not a sprint. And some training days will be harder and some will be easier. Can you tell I'm married to a track coach? Okay. As we move into step 2, research, we want you to start taking inventory of what's important to you as a family. So we're gonna be meeting with students individually and in college counseling class, but we're gonna start to ask what your family priorities are. So if you haven't had that conversation as parent and child, now's the time to start thinking about that. The things you see up on the screen, these are the tried and true, perennially important characteristics that kids think about. You notice that we're not saying, okay, come up with a list of college names that you know of first, because there are thousands of them in the United States. And we don't want you to start with like, can I get in there? We want you to start with what criteria are important to you, and then is this a good match for what I discovered in step 1 about myself? So how do you find, the matches based on your priorities? You do it through college research. You're gonna start to find out what colleges have to offer. We're gonna help you with this part. Some of the research will take place in college counseling class. These are some of the books and websites that we would suggest. As Ms. Haywood would say, don't buy the Fisk Guide to College as a holiday gift. This is not something you should wrap and put under the tree. You'll be very unpopular as a parent. But maybe just have it come from Amazon one day. It arrives on the front porch, and oh, look at that. Let's read the Fisk Guide. We'll do some of this in class. Parents, we want you to dig in. We don't want people Googling, like, what is a good school for computer science? It's just not the way to go. You're gonna get all kinds of fun things from AI, about half of it true and about half of it really bad advice. Again, TikTok, not a great source of information. Nobody loves Bama Rush more than me. I'm obsessed with that TikTok. I would not get my college advice from that Bama Rush TikTok account. We want you to be asking reps questions when they visit here, and then when you visit colleges, we'll give you a list of questions to ask. These are just some of the ways you become an informed consumer. Parents, you can be reading too. You can be digging into that Fisk Guide, or when you just can't fall asleep at night, just open that book to any page you find and learn a little bit about a college. Okay, who can tell me what we call this diagram? Geometry students? Oh, so good. Okay, it's the ever popular Venn diagram. So when you think about on the left, your talents, strengths, and goals, and then you think about on the right what the college has to offer, that very narrow area in the middle that's maroon, that's where things overlap. But not every college that falls into that maroon is gonna be a good fit. They could be too close, too far. They could be too selective for your academic metrics. The vibe could be off. The cost could be wrong for your family. So we're gonna help you figure out how to assess if that's a right college for you. Okay, so we talked about this list of things, criteria to consider, but if cost is important, this is where you start. It kind of jumps to the top of the list. So you start with finances. You can look at colleges where you know either you can pay the full cost of attendance or that you'll qualify for the aid you need to attend. And it's not a guessing game. This used to be a really hard thing to figure out, but you can figure this out pretty easily. We have a slide to show you that. The question's not really, do you have the money? It's, are you willing to pay the price tag? The government will find out through financial aid forms if you have the money. So the question is, are you willing to pay that price tag of what they say you can afford? On the college landscape, you should know there's everything from private universities to state universities, lots of different price points and price tags. And every year at Columbus Academy, we have families who make decisions based on cost. This is really from every walk of life. It's just a reality now as college costs continue to soar. And in every graduating class, we see students who are admitted into college with an enormous range of price tags. You should know that outcomes are not dependent on what you pay in tuition. Okay, so back to the business model that Ms. Crooker referred to. Colleges, they just need to balance the books. So we offer a financial aid night every fall. We had this in end of September. There's a link to the recording. If you missed it, there's a link to the recording, parents, and your Blackbaud, your My School App group. And we'll send that out as a link tomorrow if you missed it and you want to see it again. We're also happy to help you add schools to your list where we know merit aid is an option. Just so you know, this typically happens at schools where you're in the top 25% of the applicant pool, or what we would call a green zone school in the next couple of slides. So again, this used to be a scary topic, like how much will I pay? It's very transparent. We're giving you a couple of ways up here on this screen. where you could go home tonight and figure out, like, how much would I pay for a certain college. We would recommend, as an option, the College of Worcester has a really great net tuition price calculator that also includes merit aid. So many net price calculators just are for need-based aid, but some schools are incorporating merit aid as well. The one thing we would tell you is now is really the time to have frank conversations between parent and kid. If you can't afford a particular school or you're not willing to pay for it, just don't take your kid to visit there and don't let them apply. It's time to just be informed instead of, being the ostrich with your head in the sand. It's time to just take a step back and be informed about this topic. Okay, so here's a rubric that you will see a lot, because the next step in the process would be to start assessing the selectivity of some of the colleges that you have found through your research. This step really happens January through May of the junior year. So we're going to start to do this right away in individual meetings and in college counseling class. A key shape to all of this is a key step is shaping the college list. It's based on data. It's not based on emotions and really opinions of other people. And we're going to teach you how to separate those two things. It's very hard. The importance of having foundation schools, we can't emphasize this enough. When you build a house, you start with the foundation and you build up. If your foundation is strong, everything else is fine. The same thing is true of a college list. We want you to start with those foundation schools and build up from there. This list will be fluid and dynamic, and you should allow it to change. So as you visit schools or as you research schools, that list might get long, and then after you visit schools and come back and talk about it, you might take some schools off your list. This is the time that we really want you to invest in the process, to really dig deep and be honest with yourself about what you liked about a school and what you didn't like. It's not a wasted visit if you go and you say, oh my gosh, that was terrible. Just think about why it was terrible for you. What did you not like so you know where else not to go? When you find a school you love, come and tell your college counselor. We're going to ask you, what did you love about that? We want you to think about the feelings you had, what you saw, so that we can help you find more schools just like that. We want you to have 2 or 3 schools in each one of these categories. And if merit aid is important to you, we're going to ask you to have a couple of extra schools in that green zone. And most importantly, no matter where they are in your list, if you have 8 or 9 schools, we want you to have 8 or 9 first choices. Okay, we're just flashing up some logos of schools. These are places where our students visit, they like them, they apply, they've been admitted in the past few years. Many of these offer incredible merit money, so we thought we would just throw a few up there so that you can just be creative. This is a process of discovery. You might know some of these schools, you might not know some of these schools. And then last year, we get asked a lot of questions about, like, well, where do they go and how far? So last year, the senior class was 112. They went to 72 different colleges. 70% of them went out of state. Our students really go far and wide. They consider colleges from all over the country, really all over the world. Some of the juniors in this room visited with colleges from the UK, from Canada this fall. We had visitors, and it was really fun to see you in those visits and asking great questions. Now I want to pass it on to Ms. Haywood, who's going to talk about step 3, applying to colleges, which seems far away, but it's closer than you think.
Okay, everybody, so when you apply to colleges, we call it showtime. You are presenting yourself to colleges and universities, and I want to tell you a little bit about information colleges receive about you. So we're going to talk through all of these steps right here, and we're going to start with the first 2, which are typically most important, actually in most cases at colleges and universities, transcript and test scores. Okay, so the transcript. You all tonight students will receive a copy of your transcript. The transcript you will receive is through the end of your sophomore year, because you do not have a single junior grade on your transcript yet. Grades do not appear on your transcript until, if it's an English course or a 1-semester course, that's a transcript grade that goes on your transcript, but most of our courses are year-end courses. So you will not have your transcript updated until the end of your junior year. You'll have a mid-year transcript, which will appear in January, but this is to tell you that at this point, you are still writing your transcript story. And I want to encourage everyone in the room to think about that and to look at this as an opportunity. Have you been a consistent student? Do you have a growth story? Are there 1 or 2 classes that you could say, hey, I might be able to go see that teacher a little bit more. I might be able to work with them and see what I can do to improve that grade. You might think about next year, what electives do you want to take? What are you interested in? And how that tells and shows a story of you. Are you going to take a GOA class, an MSON class? There are lots of opportunities for you to shape what your transcript looks like. And when you apply to colleges, colleges get your transcript through the end of your junior year. What they also get is a copy of the school profile. And the school profile is really a guiding document that helps colleges and universities understand the context of our school. This is a college prep school. That's the first thing they see. All of the classes are taught at college prep level. And this is a hard school, and that's how they know it. They'll see our average test scores, which are really impressive, and they will also see what's called a grade distribution, and that's to get a sense of the class. The grade distribution happens at the end of the year, and that will be printed on the profile that we send next year. But the most important part of this is that they will see 100% of our students are admitted to four-year colleges, just the way you all will be. Standardized test scores. So these are some of the terms that you see a lot around standardized test scores. The SAT and the ACT, those are college entrance exams. And I'll tell you that they are tests that are required by many schools, but not by all. And so you will see that we will have every student in your class take these tests, and then at some point, individually, one-on-one, we might decide, hey, you know what? That's not my strongest suit. I don't do as well. I want to look at some schools that are test optional. And that's where you'll see that FAIR test down at the bottom. That's a website that'll tell you all the colleges and universities that are test optional. But most of our students will submit an SAT or an ACT, and if they have AP exams that they're proud of, that they want to share, they'll share those with colleges. Just so you know, with the ACT and the SAT, those are exams that are offered on Saturdays, but we offer 2 in-school SATs, one in March and one in your senior year. We will work with you all in individual appointments to make sure that you are taking tests at appropriate times. Most of you also went to a grade 10 college meeting where you got a sort of rough sketch of when you should take these tests. When you all apply for college, you can choose to submit only one of them, but you have the choice of taking both of them. Fee waivers are available for those students who qualify them. That's information that we have in our office. And as you're registering for the ACT and the SAT, please note that the vast majority of colleges do not require the writing portion of the ACT, but there's one notable exception, the U.S. military academies. So when you're thinking about when you might take these tests on the weekends, consider what your busy season is. Don't take this at the same time that you have AP exams and that you're in final rehearsals for the musical and you have all of these things going on. You want to be wise about when you take these and know that you can take them all the way through your senior year. We do want to let you know we have a whole presentation on this. Parents, this is for you. If you find this to be a topic that you're really interested in it, there's a webinar on December 12th, and parents will send you information about that. Okay, so you may say, well, hey, listen, schools are test optional. I'm going to apply test optional. We just want to show you the data that's come out about test optional at some places. And this is typically at schools with low admit rates, that what they have found over time is that these scores mattered in their process. It was another bit of data that they would look at and take into consideration. And for the colleges you see up here, this is from last year, students were twice as likely to be admitted if they submitted a test score. So that's why we encourage students to all take them, prepare for them. And also many schools are going back to requiring testing, including Ohio State. This is a year that they're back to requiring those. Okay, So then what we come into is kind of the fun part of the application, the personal information and extracurricular activities. Today we saw a great assembly presentation from DESI Club, and that's the kind of thing that you'll put on your application and you'll say, this is what I was doing, this is what I'm part of at school. And so there are parts of your application that will cover what your athletics are, what music you're involved with, what clubs you're involved with, and all of that is part of you telling your story. Part of you going from being an applicant on paper, transcript, test scores, to sort of coming alive. And there are lots of ways that you come alive. Some of those parts that you all will write and talk about in your application, and by the way, we'll work very hard with you on that. And then the other part come from recommendations from teachers. And one thing I like to tell students is that you write your recommendations by your actions every day at school. We just narrate them. We tell the story of how you show up, what you're like here, what kind of citizen you are in our community. And this is that point where you should say, okay, you know what? What do I want teachers to say about me in those recommendations? Who am I going to think about having write my recommendations? And we'll have lots of time to do that with you in our college counseling classes. But just a word to students, you still have a lot of agency in this, because colleges want to see students who will contribute to life on campus, who will be great roommates, and who will come and be involved. Okay, so then we also want to talk to you about some things that may affect your application. And one of them is this thing called demonstrated interest. This is something that we would say is in your control. Demonstrated interest is something that some colleges and universities place emphasis on. The predictive modeling that Mrs. Kruka was talking about, those are business models. Some schools say, hey, we do want to know what are the chances that we're going to yield you in that funnel. So if you haven't shown up to a school visit that we have to campus, or you just haven't checked your email, then this is the time to start doing this, to start showing colleges that you're interested in them. The good news about Columbus Academy juniors is all of you have gone to college presentations this fall. There were over 100 colleges that visited campus, and you had the opportunity to show colleges you were interested in them. You filled out a QR code. You showed them that you were joining their mailing list, learning about them. And this information is tracked at many colleges and universities. So if a coach emails you, respond. If you get a request for an interview, respond. Attend events to learn about colleges. When there are college fairs that you hear about, go to them. These are one of those things that are really important in the process at some schools. Not all colleges consider this, and again, typically larger, big public schools just do not consider this, and colleges with low admit rates don't consider this, but there are many others that do. Did I miss anything on that? No. Okay. So the authenticity of how you tell your story cannot be underestimated in this process. And we put these images up here to remind you that you're going to have a chance to talk about your junior speech if you want to mention your involvement in the Kids for Kids drive, which is going on right now. Maybe you're on service board, and maybe you're involved in athletics. And this is something that you all are going to have the opportunity in your activities section on your Common Application. In your essays, you're going to have the opportunity to talk about that. And the good news is you go to Columbus Academy, where we spend a lot of time working with you, teaching you how to tell your story, and this is a big part of the Academy advantage. Parents, I want to let you know something that the students probably already know, is that in the last 2 to 3 weeks of school, every one of our students writes their college app essay, their main college application essays. They might have other pieces that will go along with this, but we work with them to develop a topic. They work with their English teacher to get this perfected. So guess what? After that, it's done. This plays a very small weight in college admissions decision, and it causes a lot of agony for people unnecessarily. So don't tinker with this when it's done, and trust the professionals at our school. We also have college application workshops for all students that you come to in August, so we'll work with you on telling your story. So you all keep writing it right now, and we will help you fill that all in when you get to the application process. Now, there also are some things that are out of your control in this process. And those are things that we call in our lingo institutional priorities. Those are often set by, or are really set by the Board of Trustees at colleges. They say these are the things that matter to us. And deans of admissions want to keep their job, so they fill the buckets that they're told to fill. So they pay attention to that. And we want to let you know this because this can help you shape and balance your list, and we want you to be as informed as possible about all of the things that go into the application process and how colleges read them. So you can be informed, and you can control where you visit, and you can control where you apply. And the more you kind of know about the wider picture of college admissions, the better off you are. So now I'm going to pass it on to Mrs. Crookhut to talk about a few more things.
Okay, so we've made it to point number 3 on tonight's agenda, which we want you to just kind of take a nice deep breath right now. If you're feeling a little bit anxious, that's totally normal, it's totally fine, but we want to let you know that we think about your mental health throughout this process a lot. I mean, every single day, kind of a lot. This is a long game, and we want you to learn skills that are going to help you balance a lifetime of wellness. And so these things are incredibly important in the process. We do this process in an intentional and measured way. We do this in an educational setting. We take into account all of the other things that are going on in your lives. You are not just applying to college, you're doing all kinds of other important things, and those are important things to us as well. We really, though, students want you to become very comfortable with checking in on yourself and paying attention to how you're feeling and reacting to different things that are happening in this process. And parents, here's my gentle reminder to you to do the exact same thing. Check in with yourself. Ask yourself how you're feeling about what's happening in the admissions process. We watch the trends, as I mentioned earlier, about what's happening in the college admissions offices across the country, but we also closely watch the trends of what's happening in the lives of adolescents, and there's a real intersection there, and so we really want you to know that this is super important to us. It's something that we want to remind you of, though, is that we are 3 college counselors, and we are happy to talk with you about any step of the process, no matter how you're feeling about it. But you also have access to a wonderful mental health counseling team here at school, including Mrs. Dillon, who's our upper school counselor, and you can always check in with her as well. Parents, we want you to also keep yourselves informed in this process, and there's lots of great resources out there. So whether you happen to be someone who scrolls or listens to podcasts or books or reads books, this is something that we want you to be aware of. These are some of our hot list items right now. It changes quite often, but we still very much love Dr. Lisa D'Amour, so if you don't follow her on Instagram or different social media channels, I highly recommend it. She also does a podcast that is wonderful and excellent, and she's talking about the development of the whole child, but she often talks about the college process in the mix there as well. But I want you, as the counselor in me wants you to remember that anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? It's really not a bad thing all the time. And so Dr. Adam Grant, who is a professor of psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, put it this way. He said, anxiety is a sign that you care about something that's beyond your control. And the best way to combat these feelings is to do something that's in your control. So the best offense here is going to be a really good defense. And we've talked a lot about ways to keep joy in the process and keep a smile on your face throughout these 14 months. And the best way to do that is to fall in love with schools of all kinds, fall in love with schools that are all the schools that are on your list, and think about how you would balance that list. If you happen to be adding a school that's going to be in that red zone, then you may want to take a look about, at adding a school that's going to be in the green zone. Okay, so always kind of thinking about that balance. But remember that funnel, you have control over almost every single step of the process. So don't get bummed. There's lots of really positive data. I think I shared all kinds of not so positive data earlier. I want to share positive data with you now. And so the picture of the seniors on the quad is what you should have in your mind when you think about what I'm about to tell you. It all works out. It all works out. And the overwhelming data that I want you to remember, and I've been told you can see this pretty well, so I won't totally read to you, but want to talk about the number of schools that admit fewer than 50% of the students who are in their applicant pools. It's only about 15% of the schools out there. So good news, there's lots of really wonderful places out there. In fact, that's one of the myths that we constantly want to dispel or debunk, is that every college is super hard to get into, and I'm not going to get into any of those colleges. Like, that's just not true. About 65% of the colleges out there are going to be schools, the largest number of schools admit about 65% of their students, and so that's what's going to be average. And so we really want you to remember that you have control over this step. There's not as many super selective schools out there that you are thinking there might be, and so I'm going to step into some case studies just to kind of show you what a typical college search process is going to look like in, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. So moving on to step number 4 on the agenda, before we get into these case studies, I do want to give you a quick vocabulary lesson, and we want you to understand the basics of the words and terms that you're going to be hearing throughout your college search. So they're going to all be listed up here. I'm not going to read them to you, but I do want to point out a couple of things. Early action versus early decision. You're going to hear that a lot this time of year especially. And early action is going to be that non-binding admission plan. Just simply, if you apply to us earlier, we are going to give you a decision earlier. It's a great tool for students to get a sense of how their application is reading in a process, and to kind of help, kind of settle the nerves a little, because you're going to have decisions earlier on in the process, rather than waiting until getting those decisions in the spring. The other one up here is early decision, and that's the binding admission plan, meaning if you can only apply to one school early decision, if you get in, that's where you're going to go. It's really too early to decide any of this now, but it is important to know what those mean. And just to give you a quick idea, about 40 to 45% of our students every year are going to choose the binding admission plan to apply in the fall. So it's not every student, and so we just want to be really clear about that. This is that fun graphic that you've seen before, and good news, you're going to see it again, students. This is an assignment that will be in your Google Classroom all the way at the end of this year. So you're going to put this together with your counselor, and we work with you to kind of talk through this, and all of the research that you do in class kind of informs what this is going to look like. Again, this is not to ramp up any stress, this is to alleviate stress. The idea here is you're going to walk into the summer with a really cool list of schools to kind of check out and decide where you're ultimately going to apply. So how do you get there? We're going to show you a couple of different examples. So these are Vikings students coming in to have their very first meeting with their college counselor, so just about now in their junior year. And you can kind of see some stats of our first Viking here, the GPA, the test score as it currently stands, some of the classes they're taking, and all the fun, wonderful activities that they do outside of the classroom. As they come in after they've met with their counselor and they're kind of putting this list together, they're coming into the spring, end of the school year, this is what their list is currently looking like. They've done lots of research, they've worked with their families, with their counselor, they've visited some colleges, and here's where it stands right now. And you're going to see Viking 1's list is pretty balanced if you have a good look at it. Lots of really good options, and a number of good options in each of those 3 categories. Okay, so Viking 1 goes off to summer, has a great summer. You can see the GPA went up a little bit, and Viking 1 increases their ACT score by 3 points to 26. So anything you see highlighted in yellow here is going to be a change. Viking 1 also did some really cool college visits over the summer as well, visited some places they hadn't really known much about, so you can see those were added to the list here. And you can see the schools with the strike-through. Viking 1 decided those might not be places that they're very interested in. So this is what it's looking like as they're heading into application season. And then ultimately, here are the results. So anything highlighted in bright green there is going to be good news for the student. That student was offered admission at those schools. Anything in the yellow is going to be the student was either offered a spot on the school's wait list or they were offered a regional campus. That would be in the case of Ohio State there. And then the red is just, it's not so great news, the student wasn't offered admission there. Okay, so let's talk about another sample Viking. You can see Viking number 2 here, different academic interests. You can see a little bit of a different kind of curriculum here. So this is what Viking number 2 brings to the table when they come to their very first meeting. This is their list after they've done their research, after perhaps they've done some college visits, they've worked with their families, with their counselors. You might say to yourself, this looks a little top heavy. There's lots of schools in the red zone, maybe not as many in the green zone, but let's just see how this all plays out. So Viking number 2 comes back in from summer. You can see that the GPA went up a little bit. They increased their SAT to a 1490, but going into the summer, the student thought for sure they were kind of land in the SAT range of the mid 1500s. So when that didn't necessarily happen, they chose to take off some of those red schools, and you can see those with a strike through there. You can also see that Viking number 2 went to Emory University for a visit, and they really loved it. So now they're considering an early decision application to Emory. Okay, so where did this student ultimately choose to apply, and what did it all look like? So you can see here that this student did ultimately choose to apply early decision 2, so that's going to be kind of a later early decision plan, the January deadlines. And so anything in green is the student got admitted. Again, anything in red the student didn't, and the student didn't ultimately end up applying to a number of these schools because they got in early decision 2 to Emory. So really what we want you to take away from here is that both of these had really great processes, they had really balanced lists and super successful searches, okay? So I'm gonna pass it off to Mrs. Fitz now.
We're almost done, hang in there. Okay, rounding third base, coming into home, roles and responsibilities. This is our last point on the agenda before we get to the prize time. Okay, roles and responsibilities. Let's talk with the most important people first. Students, take a quick second and read this. This is your job list. And I want to tell you that you're good at so many things. Guess what you're not great at? Reading your email. But this is the year you get better. Every single day, I'm not going to make you say it to your partner, but please read your email every single day. Not because we send you stuff, we do send you stuff, but colleges send you things. And you want to be opening that, you want to be spending some time clicking through. So what if you're getting emails from colleges that are driving you nuts, like they're totally spamming you 3 times a day, you're not interested? I have a fake student account. I get 3 emails a day. I'm not going to name the school. That's my problem. I should go to the bottom of that email and unsubscribe. Don't block the sender. Don't put them in like Google Sin Bin. Just go down to the bottom of that email and unsubscribe. Spend less time on those emails. I should also unsubscribe to J.Crew. I'm getting a lot. So unsubscribe to things where you just cannot resist, and then make sure you're spending time reading the emails from colleges that you care about. Ms. Haywood showed you earlier about demonstrated interest. Many are tracking that. They can see when you open it, how long you're on it, from what kind of a device, if you're clicking through their links. I know that sounds big brother, but we're telling you this happens at some schools. One thing that you don't see up here, one thing that we want to clarify, understanding application requirements. So there are things that a college will tell you via email that you need to know about that we don't know about. So a college could say, you know what, you're applying test optional, that's great, but we're going to require that you send us a graded writing sample. Another school might require a peer recommendation. They're not going to request that from us. We're not your peer. They're not going to request it from your parents. Also not your peer. They're going to request it from you, and then it's your responsibility to find a classmate or a teammate to send that in. So it's really essential that you're reading your email. The other stuff, pretty self-explanatory. Okay, this is more about your role. Take a second, read it over. And I want you to think about your relationships and how you want things to go moving forward as a class. And we're going to tell you about a couple of things that we have found helpful with previous classes as we work with juniors and seniors. Limiting the college talk. So whether you're in the junior lounge, a locker room, behind the screen waiting for rehearsal, let's try to not have this be the focus of every conversation. We get the irony that the college ladies are telling you not to talk about college, but it will actually make you the least popular person in the lounge. It will make you the least popular person in your locker room. People will start to shrink away from you when you go on a field trip on the buses. Just take our advice on this and hold each other responsible. Have some integrity in this process. Be the one who is brave enough to really change that topic of conversation. And most importantly, be nice to your parents. Be nice to your parents. They are going to be chauffeuring you around to colleges. Eventually, you're going to ask them to pay a very large tuition bill. Be really, really nice to them. Okay. Counselor responsibilities. These are some of our job duties, but first and foremost, we're teachers and we're going to spend a lot of time teaching you. We're going to sit next to you, we're going to do some college research, we're going to help you build college lists. Eventually, we're going to write your recommendation letter, but you'll notice nowhere under this list of responsibilities are the words like get Johnny into college. We're going to give you lots of guidance and you're going to get yourself into college and you should take full credit for that. We're just going to give you thoughts and perspectives, and we're going to guide you, and we're going to help you think about things. We're going to help you do the applications, but you all are going to get yourself into college, we promise. Okay, these are some of our roles, some of the things that we see as sort of like all-inclusive in our role as a college counselor. Starting this year, you may have an advisor, but your college counselor kind of becomes the de facto first line of contact for juniors and seniors, and we like that role. And we want you to note in particular that last bullet about being values-driven. We really connect with the school mission, and everything we do in the college process is rooted in our school mission. And parents, last but not least, some of your jobs, we'll give you a second. Kids, will give you a second to read all the things your parents are going to be responsible for. We don't really know how to say this, so we didn't put it up as a responsibility, but your biggest one, you are now a chauffeur and a travel agent. You're a chauffeur and a travel agent. You're going to take your kids to visit schools, you're going to drive them around, you're going to be booking hotels, booking flights. This is really an adult role. The executive functioning, this is an adult level responsibility. We're going to ask you to complete a brag sheet. We'll send you a link to that after you meet with a college counselor. So your kid will meet with us, parents, you'll meet with us, we'll talk to you about things, and then we'll give you a chance to put some things in writing, maybe something you didn't get a chance to talk with us about. We want you to brag about your child, and we want to acknowledge that you know your child best. We're going to do our darndest to get to know them. We're never going to know them in the same way that you know them. So take some time. This was actually really fun. It was actually intimidating. I spent probably way too much time on this. But the questions that we ask, I hadn't thought about some of those in a long time. So I'm not going to cry, though, Ms. Haywood. So deadlines. We can't remind you about this. We can't submit parts of your applications. We cannot sign people up for the SAT. We cannot send your scores. We cannot file your FAFSA. These are some of the things that adults can do to help. And these are the areas where your kid really needs you to help. And parents, we also want you to educate yourself and model good behavior. The same thing, when it's time to change a conversation, be that person in the stands of a soccer game who says, let's talk about something else. Our girls in the quarterfinals of the state championship, let's talk about how great they're playing and not about what we're going to get on the SAT next week. We also want to acknowledge that parents are going to feel the tug of a child who may want to do this differently than them, at a different pace than them, and that's okay. We want you to realize that this is one point in your relationship. It's not the entire relationship. The college process should not overtake your relationship with each other. Keeping joy in the process goes both ways, kids and parents. Parents can do an important role by keeping this positive and talking about other things. Sometimes your kid doesn't want to talk about this all the time. Our general rule of advice is one night a week. So you guys can decide what that's going to be. Is it going to be Sunday afternoon? Is it going to be Tuesday night dinner? And whenever somebody starts to talk about college, everybody has the right to say, oh, it's not Tuesday night. Oh, it's not Sunday afternoon. Put it on a sticky note, put it in a notes app and say, we're going to talk about that on Sunday. One day a week in your family, and that should be enough. Our head of school, Melissa Soderberg, is known to say, parents, your biggest job is actually to manage your anxiety. To manage your anxiety and get comfortable with ambiguity. It's a really hard thing to do as adults, but we're going to ask you just to think about that. I'm going to pass on to Ms. Haywood and get ready to get some prizes. 2 more minutes.
Okay, so everybody, resources. You have a lot of them here, and we've outlined them for you tonight. And just one that I want to draw your attention to at the end of the evening is Maya. You'll see Maya in that little box there. And Maya is something that we will use a lot in the college counseling process. I would say this is similar to the My School app, meaning students, you will be using this daily in college counseling, and parents, you will also get an account for this. And this is college-specific information, and I'm going to show you one piece of it that our students and families find really helpful. So what Maya, one part of Maya, what they have is they have scattergrams for colleges and universities. And just to explain this to you, all of these squares on this graph are Columbus Academy students who've applied to the school within the last 3 years. So you can see that this is Indiana University. I've opened up the graph. I've looked it up to see what it looks like. And I can see that the average admitted student has around a 3.8 and a 1,300. And I also, because those are those lines that show you what the averages are, but you can also see that they accept a wide range of students, except that students, when you look at this, where the orange and the red triangles, orange, red, and blue squares are, those are students who were not admitted. And in this case, students below a 3.4 really had a hard time getting into Indiana. So you can see that. IU is still TEPS optional, so not all of these kids applied with a test score. So this shows you a little bit of a wider swath, but this will give you this. What I want to tell you all is that this is just a thumbnail sketch of what goes on. So you might be looking at that top little red square and saying, oh my gosh, what happened with that student? Well, maybe that student applied to the music school at IU, which is much more competitive to get into. So there's just some information in there. There's not all the information. Let me show you another one so you can see. Here is another example. This is from University of Richmond. And University of Richmond has early decision. And so you'll see that they have a little bit of a different symbol in there. They have the parallelogram. Okay, I pronounced it. I was a little worried I might trip up on that word, but I got it. Parallelogram for early decision. So their squares are early action, and their parallelograms are early decision. So you can see here at University of Richmond, the average admit rate is about a 4.0 and close to a 1,400. Admitted students, had a score around 1,400 above. So it looks like below a 4.0 without early decision is going to be a difficult school to get into. Again, this is just telling you where that's going to be on your little graphic that we showed you, red, yellow, or green. So you're going to be looking to fill all of those boxes, and Maya Learning will help you with that. So what you all are about to embark on, and this kind of marks the kickoff for you, is a happily busy time with college counseling. And we will send this to you afterwards so that you all can read it more carefully. But I think the things that I want to show you down at the arrow, the bottom there, SAT, and ACT and visiting colleges, that is up to students and families. So when you leave tonight, you want to be thinking, what is our family calendar? When are we going to fit these things in? If you know you can't visit colleges during spring break, then you need to take advantage of days off school at other points in the year to visit colleges. You want to go into the summer with some college visits under your belt. I will just send this to you. This tells you a little bit about everyone's roles and everybody's next steps, and you'll get this afterwards and can take a look at that. And quick primer on college visits. This is something that we've talked about a lot in this, but really what we want you to know is when we talk about you being a travel agent for this parents, this actually means going to the college websites, checking when they offer visits, seeing what times they are, signing up for them. Slots can fill up, so you want to be aware of that. So if you're saying, I know we're going on spring break, start planning it as if you were planning it 2 months before. Take a look at these, see what's out there. Click on the calendar and see when you can have them. We are also going to send you a copy of our whole presentation about this. Limited resources, we all have them. Time and money are two big things that are limited for people. And we want to let you know that there are predatory elements that surround this process. There will be people that'll say, you have to sign up for us for college counseling. Guess what? You have college counseling and you pay for it. It's called tuition at Columbus Academy. You have the three of us. And so we just want to make you aware of that. These are other things that I want you to look at. You shouldn't pay for someone to help you write your essays. We have a writer studio here. You have your college counselors. All of that is important to realize. And the unintended consequences of hiring out places an unhealthy emphasis on things that don't matter as much as you think they do. Okay, lastly, thank you for listening.